Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am going to call this special meeting of April 21st, 2025 of Sonoma City Council. And I'm actually going to hand it over to our city manager to introduce our legislative lobbyist.
Great, thank you so much. And tonight we have a discussion with our lobbyists who we work with, and along with our fellow cities in the Sonoma County area. All the cities in Sonoma County, with the exception of Santa Rosa, work together to acquire the resources of MMO partners, who we're going to hear from today. And they'll talk a little bit about that, their role, what they do for us. And then the goal today is to talk about legislative priorities for the council at the federal level, so that myself and the lobbyists can understand what's important to you, so we can highlight those, identify those, and bring those back as appropriate for discussion or action. So presenting tonight is John O'Donnell from MMO Partners, and Kyriakos Pagoni, who I believe is on as well. And I will turn it over to Kyriakos or John, whoever wants to kick us off.
Thank you, David. I just wondered, before we get started, can I work through the slide presentation that we have?
Yes, absolutely. Can you put that up on your screen? Can you share yours? Is that possible?
Kyriakos, can you do that?
Let me see if I can do that.
I apologize.
Can you see that?
I have a blank screen. Oh, there it is.
There it is. Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Kyriakos. Well, Mayor and members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation to you tonight. We could probably talk to you for a couple of hours about what's going on here, but we don't want to take that much time to tell you. But I'll start by talking a little bit about our firm. MMO Partners has been doing local government representation in Washington, D.C. since 1980. And as Kyriakos and I are proud to say, we still have the first 4 city clients that we started representing back in 1980. That's the city of Albuquerque, Oklahoma City, Oxnard, California, and Phoenix, Arizona. And the work that we've always done for local governments is across a wide range of those programs that affect metropolitan areas, urban areas, and our clients range from large cities, several counties, the Port of Hueneme in Ventura County, California, flood control districts, and we represent several water utilities and one electric utility. The work that how we got started in this business was because one of my original partners was head of the Office of Economic Opportunity for the state of Oklahoma. And about the same time he was doing that, I was doing a similar job for the state of New Hampshire, working in the governor's office. And Kyriakos has had some significant local government experience working with us and working before he came to MMO Partners. One of the things that we're proud about is the rate of return on the investment that people make in our firm to represent them in Washington. And we're very cognizant of the fact, because of the experience we've had with local governments, about how important it is that taxpayers feel that they're getting value for the money that they spend on services. What we do, and your city manager just mentioned this, we have regular meetings with our Sonoma County group of cities and cover a broad range of activities. Really, we focus a lot on what is going on currently in each one of these meetings. So the agenda changes from month to month, but right now it's reconciliation, it's the FY26 appropriations process, it's covering some of the executive orders and some of the changes in federal agencies, and anticipating that we'll have some sort of a budget from the administration soon for FY26. So those meetings are hosted, as I said, once a month. We identify funding opportunities. We can provide technical grant assistance. We have several consultants that work with us in the housing area and in the transportation area. The three individuals have some pretty significant experience with HUD and with Congress. Our housing person was the staff director for the Financial Services Committee for Barney Frank when he was chair. And our two transportation people, one has 34 years experience working at federal highways, and some of that was in California out of the Los Angeles Federal Highways Office. And the other was in the secretary's office for 15 years and handled a lot of the grants as they came up there before they were given their final award to a local government or to an agency. And as I said, we monitor the operations going on in Washington, like grants and the appropriations process. So right now, some of the big issues that are facing local governments, and I include counties here because most cities do not have a Medicare or Medicaid responsibility, but many counties do. And some of the programs that support behavioral health programs, which some cities have gotten into with their police departments, they count on the Medicaid assistance as a source of payment for the services. Municipal bonds, this is one thing that we've been talking to all cities about, all counties about, because in the 2017 tax bill, there was a proposal to get rid of the tax exempt status for municipal bonds. And I believe Kyriakis shared with your city manager the report that the University of Chicago did about the amount of tax exempt bonds that are issued by local governments or local agencies, and they did it by congressional districts. It's a recent study, and we've been using that with members of Congress to show them how important the tax exempt bonds are to local governments. We're following what they're going to cut in the government, what we hear they're going to cut. Some of that is going to definitely be in the housing programs, some of it in the environmental programs. We're also conscious of what the tariff impacts are on local governments and government in general, because as the next one there, travel and tourism, we understand how important in California agricultural businesses and tourism. And we've already begun, as I'm sure you've seen, comments from all over the country about the loss of tourism. We've sort of noticed this in Washington, D.C. This is about the time of year that we begin to get a tremendous amount of tourism, but it is, according to the local visitors and convention bureau, it is down right now. We still get a lot of high school tourists coming to town, but the international travel is down. And soon, as I mentioned before, the FY26 budget will be out by the president, and we expected that in April, but it looks like it's going to be early May, and we'll be reporting back to the cities in Sonoma County about what those impacts are. As I mentioned, CDBG and home and transit and clean energy, we expect there to be cuts in those programs. And I'll just mention this, I think sometimes Congress takes the initiative on these things. There is a House committee right now that is seeking local government comment on the CDBG program and the home program and what suggestions or recommendations they have for Congress to consider in reauthorizing those programs. So to wrap up this section, it's really, right now we're in the business of finishing up the 25 appropriations. It's a CR. There were no earmarks because of that. The FY26 budget should be coming out, as I mentioned, and Congress has started the appropriations hearings for the FY26 Appropriations Act. Reconciliation, this is going to be a roller coaster between now and, I'm guessing, the end of the summer. This is not going to be an easy piece of legislation, and that includes the tax legislation that will go with it. It's not going to be easy because there are some really difficult problems in making the size cuts that have been uh, recommended by the budget resolutions. One specific one is $880 billion out of the Commerce and Energy Committee authorizations in the House, 880 billion over 10 years. And a lot of that responsibility for programs in that particular committee is Medicare and Medicaid. And it's very interesting to see how many states really depend on that Medicaid funding, and it will blow a hole in state budgets if they tinker with that expenditure too much at the federal level. The surface transportation bill, which is really highway safeties, highway and transit, expires next year, and it needs to be reauthorized. The big challenge there is the federal trust fund, the highway trust fund, which has not, the federal gas tax has not been raised, I think it's 92 or 93 since then. And when they did it, it was 4.3 cents, and the federal gas tax right now is 18 plus cents per gallon. The challenge is going to be, what do we do about electric vehicles? How do we assess some kind of charge that should go into the trust fund? And then we'll be looking at federal agency actions after the budget from the president is gone over by the House and Senate as they work towards a final FY26 appropriations bill. Kyriakis, do you want to pick it up from here?
Yeah, thanks, John. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. As John mentioned, the FY25 budget was passed via full year CR. Just to highlight some of the funding numbers, which really are funding numbers from FY24 because they didn't pass a regular bill, so they default back to the 24 numbers, which in some cases actually are in some cases a benefit. For example, CDBG was fully funded at least at those levels of 24 at 3.3 billion. The home program, which the House had slashed in its version of the FY25 budget, about I think 500 million is what they had, but because they went to a full year CR, it went back to the 1.25 billion level from FY24. Homeless assistance, again, at 24 levels. The Department of Transportation, there were funds in the bill for discretionary grant programs like We Knew It As Raised is now back to build. There's $1 billion for the Safe Streets for All program and several other grant programs that DOT will roll out in the next few months. FTA was funded under its authorized level, so those are formula funds that will get distributed or portioned in the next month or so. At least that's what we expect. I think it's safe to say that anything we say like in the next 10 minutes could change in 5 minutes after that. So take that with a grain of salt. Community project funding, John mentioned, earmarks were eliminated because of the CR. There was, I believe, there were 2 projects in the county, one I think near and supported by the city of Sonoma called Donald Gap Road Project. So that project was not included, as were all the other projects. Legislation that happened at the end of the year, the Water Resources Development Act, which authorizes the Corps of Engineers programs and projects, that was passed and signed into law. The Economic Development Reauthorization Act, which also authorizes Economic Development Administration programs. There are public works programs through the EDA that local governments can utilize to help spur economic development, and so that was reauthorized at the end of the year. John mentioned budget reconciliation, big topic currently now. The House and Senate have a joint resolution that was adopted. And so now committees are beginning to develop their legislation to adhere to the resolution guidelines. Issues, as John mentioned earlier, and I'm sure you all are very well attuned to Medicare and Medicaid cuts, and we've spoken with David about potential impact to your ambulance service and funding for that. Tax exempt status of municipal bonds. We covered proposed cuts to programs like CDBG and Home are potentially on the table. Low income housing tax credits. I know there's significant bipartisan push to include low income housing tax credits in a reconciliation bill. They tried to do that last year. It was not successful in a tax compromise, but there is a significant push to get LIHTC credits in this next bill. So that's something we're certainly watching, and there is significant effort on all local governments pushing for that next year or this year. Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill, as John mentioned, the IIJA, which was the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Package, expires September of 2026. House and Senate have already begun to have hearings on potential reauthorization topics, including possible tax on electric vehicles, as John iterated earlier. There is a call for proposals currently. The House T&I Committee has asked, and there's a deadline of April 30th for stakeholder input. We've been talking to the Sonoma County Transportation Authority about that opportunity, and I know they're working with MTC. MTC has their principles, so that's something we're certainly paying attention to. And there's obviously programs, discretionary grant programs like Safe Streets for All that has been used in the county. And so programs like that are certainly of interest to keep going. There is possible consolidation of programs, so there may be a push to consolidate the number of new grant programs that were established under IIJA. So that's something that will potentially impact local governments as they eliminate programs and combine them. We mentioned the new revenues from electric vehicles. That's something where the states that have a significant number of electric vehicles will want to make sure that they are getting their fair share of return if there is a tax on electric vehicles. So that's something we're certainly watching very closely. So the administration budget has not been released yet, but we have started to see some information from various agencies about potential cuts that the administration is going to propose in its budget request. For example, the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program called LIHEAP. The proposed action is to eliminate the program. Head Start is also being proposed to be eliminated. I will say that this is just the president's budget request. I think all presidents do things that Congress either likes or doesn't like, and then Congress says thank you for your information, and then the Congress will do its work on developing a budget. Tariffs are certainly something that are impacting local governments, businesses, ag, and as John mentioned, even tourism. So that's certainly something we're keeping the entire group abreast of as we see things that could potentially impact local governments, especially things around immigration and clean energy. Those are things that we've already seen come out of executive actions that the president has laid out. The Department of Transportation, for example, issued a notice about a month ago where it is now reviewing, all grant programs that either received a grant but were not in an agreement, and are scrubbing those grants for things that don't align with executive actions released by the administration. One of those things is the FEMA BRIC program that's building resilient infrastructure communities. That's something that the administration just announced it was going to eliminate. There is some discussion whether or not they repackage the program and release it as something else. But as of right now, even programs, even grants that are in an agreement but haven't spent money are subject to elimination. And so that's certainly something that we're watching and paying attention to. I don't think that impacts Sonoma necessarily, but there are other cities in the county that have had BRIC awards and are potentially being impacted. I know the county had a significant award it received, and so that's something that is certainly out there. And then a lot of these actions, as we've seen, are going to end up in the courts, and we're certainly paying attention to that. I think that ends our portion of the presentation, and we can stand for questions, comments, discussion.
Any questions from the council? Yes, Councilwoman Lowe.
On the issue of the bonds losing their tax exempt status, how is the impact of that on large investment, public pension funds, et cetera?
I don't have the details about how it affects specifically the pension funds. I have heard the government finance officers, which represents the financial people in cities and counties around the country and local government, talk about the fact that the pension funds will be one very significant entity affected if they do away with the tax exempt bonds. And Kyriakis and I participated in a meeting this morning with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and they are taking this situation very serious. And what they call the Big Seven, which is the Governors Association, National League of Cities, U.S. Conference of Mayors, government finance officers, state legislatures, they are working, I would say, very hard on the Ways and Means and Finance Committee in the Senate, Ways and Means in the House, about the importance of this tax exempt status. And to your point, council member, the impact that it would have on pension funds.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gurney.
Good evening. My question is, we watch the slash and burn style going on, and we know that reducing costs and staffing and everything else at the federal level is a priority, but has the administration identified what their priorities really are from an operational perspective?
I think, council member, the budget is really that document that typically lays out priorities for each administration, what each agency needs and wants Congress to appropriate funding towards. So, that's one area where once we do see the full budget, which I think we're expecting to see over the next month or so, there has been discussion about them releasing what they call a skinny budget, which is probably a slimmed down version, more top line numbers than the details that you're requesting. But once we do see the budget in full, we will certainly make sure that the group knows what those priorities are in the budget.
Okay,
and what's not in the budget as well.
I would add to that that if you look where you're seeing most of the federal employees laid off or fired, you look at the agencies where that is happening, and it gives you some bit of a pattern that answers your question. I think you see it in Foreign Affairs, State Department, USAID, the social programs, HUD, HHS, and Kyriakis mentioned FEMA, which is a big surprise to me because when you, I want to make another point about, Kyriakis made a very good point about this. When Congress, this is the tough thing for Congress. They have got to come up with a reconciliation package, and they've got to finish or do a FY26 bill. Many members of this Congress are, on both sides of the aisle, are looking very carefully at the decisions they're going to have to make about the budget, because there are some members of the House, and I think I know for sure there are 10 members of the House where in their congressional districts, they have more than 50, and in some cases, 65% of their people in their district get Medicaid. So the services that they're talking about cutting, this budget process, back to what Kyriakis said, the FY26 budget and the reconciliation package and the layoffs. I think you look at all three of these things, you'll see very clearly what they want to eliminate. And you get some early indication by the ones that I've mentioned.
Thank you. And my last comment is, it just seems to me that local government has a large disproportionate amount of their expenses related to public safety. And I don't know if there's been any discussion about the COPS program, if that's even still in effect. But, you know, to be able to support public safety issues, I think would be very helpful if we can make that work. But, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions over here? All right, so I have two questions in regards. The first one is municipal bonds, and just comment, California, I think, is the largest municipal bond market in the country. And so, and many of those are state GO bonds or other, projects that, support our, water, schools, highways, we can go on and on and on. So what as you're meeting with counties and cities, while the municipal bonds, for the most part, affect state and larger cities, how are you looking in any way of how that overall is going to affect kind of just the overall functioning of smaller municipalities, and what that's specifically going to affect them in regards to their budgets, and especially when you think of issues around safety or clean, safe streets, or. And then I have another question, but that's the first one.
Well, I think what I mentioned earlier about the University of Chicago's Municipal Finance Center study by congressional district about the entities that issue bonds and who they are. If you look at the congressional districts, and we've been using this information because it's pretty persuasive when you show it to members of Congress. There are they run all the way from large cities, big utilities, down to the smaller communities. So it's a very good inventory that just tells you this is an enormous amount of revenue that is used by large, medium, and small size government agencies, be they cities or special jurisdictions, to support the services that serve the public. So that's the argument that we're making, and it goes across all sizes of government.
And Mayor, we can follow up with David and send over the exact list of projects, because they do by projects and by entity. So the study is pretty robust. I mean, there's probably projects that you all are doing that may not be on this list, and in that case, it might be worthwhile to maybe draft the city's letter along with the group, and maybe do an updated list of potential impacts. And maybe it's not a City of Sonoma thing, but it could be a county bond that would also impact you. But it may be worth doing that.
And Kyriakis, if I recall, you've been talking to Congressman Thompson about this frequently and his staff, and he's on Ways and Means.
Yeah, we've shared the study with them, and they've seen other information from the district.
So good. So that work is being done, because I think for us it's important for us to understand kind of both from a service to our constituents and costs and budget, what kind of effects some of these implementation, especially around municipal bonds, will have on us directly, because I don't think people first think, oh, municipal bonds, how does that, how does that affect me and my house and my neighborhood? So, and then the other question I have is, I've received a number of emails from people in the nonprofit world that are very concerned about a potential upcoming executive order that would potentially take away the tax exempt status of nonprofit organizations and foundations that are, any of them that are working on DEI, any of them that are working on climate awareness, climate resiliency, climate education. So are you familiar with that at all? I mean, so, for us, I mean, this is one of the areas I'm concerned about too, is because we receive a lot of our services for our constituents from our partnering nonprofit organizations and from our local foundations that provide a lot of services as well. And many of them, while they may not be specifically doing just that work, they may be doing that, may be some of their work, and there's other work that they're doing in the community as well too. Just any information that you have about that.
I mean, I think, I haven't heard of a specific executive order, if that's what you're asking about, nonprofits losing potentially their tax exempt status. Obviously, what is front and center today is Harvard, and their tax exempt status being threatened. They filed suit today. And from what I've gathered, the removal of a tax exempt status on a nonprofit is a pretty lengthy process. So it wouldn't be surprising if the administration did issue an executive order like you're suggesting. But I think, it's certainly something that we're watching. I think, where this could certainly come into play is, a lot of communities use CDBG funds to do work in the nonprofit space. And so, we haven't seen the administration's guidance on CDBG, and I know you all probably work with the county on CDBG and that allocation, and so that's something we're certainly paying attention to, because I could see a scenario where HUD issues guidance that if there is DEI or whatever policies this administration's pushing, that that might be a way for them to steer money away from groups that are doing those things through those programs.
Mayor, I realize there are a lot of nuances to the things about diversity, inclusion, and equity and climate change. I'd say this, that to the degree that maybe it's not your main focus in your nonprofit, if you don't have to engage in a lot of that terminology, I just would say be careful with it. The other thing I would say is most of your nonprofits, I would think, have some sort of regional, state, or national association that they're affiliated with. Or if they're not, they know other people who are in the same space doing similar work. I would say that they want to do something to reach out to their members of Congress and tell them about the work that they're doing and the importance of their tax status.
And as you've probably seen, Mayor and Council, your delegation doesn't need to be convinced. They're fighting hard against these policies that are, potentially impacting not only the city, nonprofits, constituents, and so they're certainly out there, really, really fighting against some of these things that are really impactful. So, but it is important to let them know once there is an impact, so that they can have the data that they then can act on. So that is something where we all need to work together to make sure that they have the best information possible, like the municipal bond impacts, other impacts that you all are seeing. It's very important to make sure that they have that data quickly.
Thank you. And so any other questions? So I think then, are we taking public comment? Yes, public comment at this moment? Not seeing any public comment. I'll bring it back to the council for discussion, and I think I would like to just kind of hand it back over to our city manager in regards to kind of some thoughts of where we want to go next with this.
Thank you, and thank you, John and Kyriakis. One of the things that I was hoping to get out of today is to hear the council, basically have the council receive this information and then provide me and MMO partners with some of your thoughts about priorities and what you feel is important for the city of Sonoma. And I've heard some of those already come up, and I think that's really helpful for us. As they mentioned, we do meet monthly, and then throughout the month, Kyriakis is really good about sending updates of things that he knows we might be interested in, just so I'm aware that it's happening. So if we can focus our attention on those things that are important to you all, that you think we want to keep an eye on, that'll help direct our attention, direct our focus. And then if there's something that has to happen quickly, I can work with MMO partners and potentially the mayor to turn something around quickly if it's in line with the consensus of the council, to support our representatives such as Congressman Thompson when they're doing whatever they need to do. I'm also willing to, obviously, if any information is given out to Congressman Thompson or any other group on behalf of the city, we would share that with the full council, just to make sure that the council's aware of what was presented, so they're aware. And as mentioned before, we are working with all the other cities in the counties just to make sure we're consistent and working together on that as well, because there is more power together, speaking with one voice. But we do have unique situations, and they mentioned one where most cities don't own an ambulance service, so kind of how that Medicaid affects us, but other things are very common amongst other cities. So that feedback would be helpful for me, and I think it'd be wonderful for John and Kyriakis to hear you as well, so they can make note.
Comments from the council? Councilwoman Lowe, yes.
Thanks.
I almost put you in Congress there.
Well, yeah, that would be weird. But stranger things have happened, obviously. So obviously I'm very interested in what happens with the budget. I think that's the key piece, and you've identified that. I mean, everything sort of flows from there. We can't really help people in any regard if we're, slashing our budget. And to John's point regarding public safety, I mean, the reason I inquired a little bit about the impact on pension funds, I mean, all of that will impact our ability to provide the public safety that we want to at the level that we feel is required for our community. Luckily we have a little bit of extra support because of the county passing Measure H, but if our pension liabilities through CalPERS are get out of whack, I mean we're really facing some difficult decisions. So that's to me that's number one, because it's always most important to provide a level of safety in a community, and especially we'll be talking about fire later, but police and fire and all of that support is it's really important that we provide public pensions that attract the best people into those professions, and they deserve it because they put their life on the line for our communities. So that to me is always number one. I think that, to the mayor's point, any sort of impact on any of our nonprofits that are doing support for people in ways that we don't have the budget to do, it is a budget item. I mean, people think it's a social item. It's not a social item. It's a budget item. And, the fact that we're able to use, that all these various agencies that help with the unhoused community, that work to clear the Overlook Trail. I mean, we can go on and on in terms of all of the community center, which is going to be putting up photographs here hopefully soon, and all of that. If it all went away, that's a level of service that people have come to expect. So, I like to think of everything in terms of, we want to do it all. We can't do it all if we don't have the resources. So it always comes back to the resources for me, and then it's up to us to decide, how those resources should be spent. But, so thank you for that. Those are my my priorities. Obviously, there's other things that we handled in the courts. I mean, that I don't think we can impact, because I think there are going to be questions for the Supreme Court, and that a lot of that has to do with immigration. We have a large immigrant community in Sonoma, and it would be horrendous to see the impacts of some of these proposals on our community and on the people who we rely on every single day to be part of our community and, you know, everything that we do here. So, and then of course education is a big issue as well. Even though they're going to get rid of, the president wants to get rid of the Department of Education, even though that's horrible, that it's not the largest chunk of education funding, which is, I guess that's the good news of it all, but the other things will impact the rest of it. And it's, as someone who is a career educator, you know, it's kind of abhorrent to think that the most needy students might be getting less than they already get. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Ding.
And also, it reminds me of the local, some of the nonprofit organization providing the community service, provided the food, and during the past several months, and we are facing and a lot of the, you know, the funds uncertainty because they got the fund and from the federal and project, and right now, yeah, so that is a very immediate impact for on the local. So because right now some nonprofit organization is running, but they are using and the reserve fund. Because anytime this kind of service should be, you know, closed out and stopped. That is very, very, you know, urgent, you know, matters. Yeah. And also, when you, I'm not sure how detailed for that Water Resource Development Act, and also we are concerned about this because Potter Valley in the project, I know the owner local two counties, Sonoma County and Montesino County, and both of them don't have this kind of fund available to solve this kind of big project. I don't think the state also has this kind of capability. And we already got used to relying on federal, but I'm not sure what kind of the resources available for the new Water Resource Development Act. We really don't know. Yeah, maybe our consulting company can give us a little bit of detail and see how closely related our day-to-day service. Yeah, thank you.
Other comments? Vice Mayor Welander.
Thank you. I'd also start by just simply saying that I'm very appreciative of the fact that we have this support and we have this monthly gathering of the city managers to be looking at this. I think that's provides some comfort in these kind of turbulent times. For me right now, I think the focus I would like to see is the anticipated financial focus. And as we know, we only have several buckets in our town, TOT and sales and property. And I'm suspecting, based upon what has been shared, it's primarily going to be tourism, possibly, as well as the sales tax. So what I would like to really do is keep on top of the potential impact, because the vast majority of our budget is based upon our buckets. So that would be my recommendation.
Councilmember Gurney?
Well, I've already made a couple of comments, but I think as we start gearing up for the budget process locally, it might be interesting to take a look at how many dollars we currently are dealing with in terms of receiving revenue from that it's tied to the federal government, just so that we know what that number looks like. Because if we have to eliminate that from our revenue projections, it's going to change the way we handle the budget. So that would be that on the local level, my recommendation. But it's well, I don't need to comment on the daily change in Washington, and I admire you for the work that you do, trying to keep up with everything that's going on, and so I do rely on the city manager to share the happenings, but I'm more concerned about the impacts locally, and whether it be the nonprofit organization, everything is interconnected, everything is related, and we just need to learn how to manage whatever is coming at us. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I agree with all of the comments that have been made by my fellow council members. So just to highlight a few of the effects that we have less control over, but I think that there could be some support from Congress in regards to immigration and tariffs, because I think that those directly affect the viability in the economy in Sonoma County and in the city of Sonoma, and certainly concerned very much about what happens with education funds because of, I agree completely with Councilwoman Lowe, but then it's mostly special needs children that will be affected, and how do you who's going to provide those types of services? So, and then of course for me, climate issues are crucial because the California economy is really very much dependent on the climate, the clean energy economy. And so although that may not be like directly linked to our budget at first blush, it certainly is going to have significant effects on us overall as a state and potentially as a county. So I will stop there because I could go on and on of the name, but thank you very much. Does that give you enough?
Yeah,
Mr.
absolutely.
Guillen?
This is wonderful. I appreciate that we've taken notes, and I know John and Kyriakis have as well. And if we have one more moment, we do have our fire chief in the audience, and we have been working with him as well about using their whole network to address some of the issues that are here locally. And so I've asked to see if he could say a few words about what he's doing, just so you could hear, and then also our audience can hear as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll keep it brief. I know we're on a timeline here. So this is a really important conversation for all of us, not just here in the city, but beyond. And so I have the honor of serving as one of 8 executive board members of the California State Fire Chiefs Association, and we are actively engaged on all of this, and we're actively engaged in partnership with the California Professional Firefighters, as well as the Districts Association, the California Special Districts Association, League of California Cities. We have a whole group that is united in moving our positions forward on this. So 3 things that I wanted to just touch on really quickly and emphasize is the EMS reimbursements. So our Cal Chief members were the ones that designed these programs for reimbursements for the state of California. We are actively engaged on these, including Medicare, Medicaid, and what impacts and how to potentially limit those if they are really on the chopping block. Second thing is FEMA. FEMA does a lot for us, not just grants, but they are first on the ground for us to get federal funding when we are faced with recovery, right? And we have been, as a county, we have been in that boat far too many times. And so to even think about them not being there and having to have the state or someone else pick up that ball, that's daunting and really, really scary. And then the last thing I will point out, and this has been happening for a couple of years now. We've been seeing a degradation of service from the U.S. Forest Service. in their ability to staff their fire stations. As many as before this new administration took hold, up to 40% of their fire stations statewide were not able to be staffed. That's a big number. And then with the administration's potential cuts to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which the Forest Service falls under, what that does is any further loss of staffing, what that does is that need doesn't go away. And the state can't pick that up with CAL FIRE. What that does is it puts the onus on us as the local responders, and we are being asked to do more and more and heavily commit to those big statewide incidents where the feds and the state are not able to pick up the load. So I appreciate Daniel and Kyriakis. I get your emails. I appreciate them. I appreciate all of your work. It's super important. And I appreciate being able to have this conversation and to be able to add a couple of points. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, John, and, I have to pronounce your name right. Kyriakis, is that correct?
Correct.
Very good.
Very
That's really good for me, especially. So, but thank you very much, Chief Aker, because, that was one of the things I've been very concerned about is FEMA. And in just thinking of our overall budget, our reserve budget, we've always counted on, under emergencies, that, we wouldn't have to be looking at our reserve budget if we were, flood, fire, earthquake, other extreme events. So thank you very much. And the only other thing is I wish someone would push back on, I realize we have to use different language to protect ourselves, but then there comes a point then how do you talk about things if you can't say the word resilience, or you can't say the word climate, or you can't say the word special needs. It becomes very difficult to do the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
I'll make one
Go
before we
ahead.
go. You mentioned FEMA, and the chief mentioned FEMA, and some of the council members mentioned it as well. So the delegation, Congressman Thompson just circulated a dear colleague letter where he was trying to get a number of his colleagues to sign on to a letter, specifically pushing back against the cuts, for example, on the BRIC program, and also the reforming of the agency or elimination of the agency. So that letter has been circulated. David, I'll send you the final version of that. So appreciate your support for that as well.
Mayor, I would like to just mention something that the chief made me think of when he was talking about FEMA and recovery, if I might.
Yes, go ahead.
Chief, one of the things that Kyriakis and I heard from a couple of county managers in New Mexico was they raised the same concern about FEMA and Medicaid. And I would say, because you firefighters have such a robust network of connections across the country, California with people that are in New Jersey with people that are in Texas, I would urge you, and maybe you're already doing this, your state association, but I would urge you to reach out to some of your colleagues in states where you have Republican senators and Republican congressmen and women, and talk to them about, are they weighing in? Are they talking to those folks on these issues? Because they're going to need that support down the road.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief Aker. Yes, one other comment, question.
That made me think of something. One thing that did happen positively in terms of pensions was the government pension offset, windfall elimination provision, payback for those people in public pension states. One of those states being Texas. That's been on the table, affects firefighters, affects teachers, many other municipal employees, et cetera, who are in public pension funds and weren't getting their full Social Security or their spouse or whatever. So it seems to me that the point that you made, somehow that coalition came together in order to make that happen, that similarly that they could stay together for the things that you mentioned. I just brought that to mind.
Yeah, and thank you, Chief Aker and our fire department for the work that they do. I mean, I think that we really, Sonoma is seen as a leader, and it's really appreciated. Thank you. All right, so we're going to take a break now, and we will resume in 5 minutes for our general meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you
you.
very much.
All right, take.
we are all here. I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council for April 21st, 2025. At this time, I'd like everybody to please turn off your phones or your watches if they're really noisy, like they go tick-tock really loud. And just let people know that we are going to, we're convening, and I have to follow my map here. Okay. So at this point, I would like people to stand as they are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. City Clerk Barr, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Lowe. Councilmember Gurney.
Here.
Vice Mayor Wellender.
Here.
Councilmember Dean.
Here.
Mayor Farrar Rivas.
Here.
Thank you.
And there was no closed session tonight, so there is no report on the closed session. At this point, I would like council members to approve the agenda unless there is something they would like to change in the agenda.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstained? Any noes? Okay, good. We're good. All right. At this point, we're going to be taking comments from the public, and the public may address the council on any items that are not, this is for items not in the agenda. And if you come up and talk about something that's in the agenda, we'll let you know that it's going to happen later. But we would not take them at this time. We limit this to 10 speakers, and each speaker will be allowed up to 2 minutes. Speakers who do not have an opportunity to speak during this time, let's say if there's more than 10, we have another session at the end of the meeting, another public comment period. And that would be open for whoever's here and still wants to speak. All right, so how many people do I have that are, that was good, that want to speak tonight? All right, so I am going to let you take 3 minutes since there's 4 of you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Janet Boyle. I live on Brazil Street, and I'm here tonight to request your help. I have stood in front of this committee, the planning committee, over the last 4 months. In addition, I attended and actively participated in the general plan workshop meetings held previously. The most recent one was at Vintage House on January 30th. In all of these forums, I've expressed, and I have heard many other residents express their concerns about the proposed changes to the land use definition for the Sebastiani property. Unfortunately, to my disappointment, it appears that all those concerns from many residents of Sonoma have had no effect on the proposed plan. We had a meeting with Jennifer Gates last Tuesday, the week before Tuesday, April 8th. And during that meeting, I found out that nothing has changed since January 30th. So all of our concerns that we've expressed have had no effect. So that's why I'm asking for your help. So I'm here tonight to ask for your guidance and assistance on how we can get our concerns heard and feel that our voices and our concerns matter. I think several of you were in the meeting on January 30th, the workshop at the Vintage House, and you heard firsthand that many people expressed concerns. It was a packed house that 95% of the concerns expressed were focused on the Sebastiani property.